Blog Talk Radio.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me on this episode 17 of the show about the show. My name is Devlin Clark. As always, I am the creator and host of this podcast. Every episode is dedicated to the memory of my dad. Please make sure that you support any disabled military veterans associations that you can. If you have Twitter, check out SIGS for Soldiers on Twitter at SIGS, the number 4, the word soldiers, SIGS 4 Soldiers on Twitter. They do a lot of great stuff in terms of giving back to disabled veterans, which is what my dad was. Also, some other really cool podcasts. If you're looking for sports podcasts, baseball in particular, Locked On Twins is a cool podcast where Brandon Warren and a co-host talk everything Twins. They have a couple sponsors. They're giving away a pair of home opener tickets, so make sure you check that out at Brandon Warren on Twitter, at Locked On Twins on Twitter. Very, very active. Brandon's a great guy. He's a dad like I am, and he's a giant Twins fan. So great guy. So go check that one out. And then I also want to give a shout out to Let Me Get That Potograph, which is just such a clever name for both a podcast and an aspect of collecting. It is a podcast that is related to the baseball card hobby, to collecting autographs, all that kind of thing. They talk about products that have come out. Topps Heritage just came out, I want to say 2 or 3 days ago. I've been looking at some of the cards on Twitter and eBay and stuff, and they are beautiful. They are replicas of replicas, but they are in the style of the 1969 cards. So those are pretty nice. The 69s are one of the nicer sets that they have, and the big thing with the Heritage cards that just came out is they have the first on-card autographs of the Japanese Babe Ruth, Shohei Ohtani. So check that out at your local store. Let Me Get That Potograph. Check it out on iTunes. Check them out on Twitter. They are fantastic. I'm going to be having those guys on the show here in the very near future. So today's episode is episode 17. Wow, 17? Jeez, I can't even believe that this little podcast that I have has gone 17 episodes. Thank you so very much to every single person that has ever listened to even 1 minute of my podcast. Episode 17, Jack Kucek. We're going to bring Jack on here shortly. Jack, for those of you who don't know, spent time in the majors with 3 teams. He was drafted and played for the Chicago White Sox. He also played for the Philadelphia Phillies and the Toronto Blue Jays. He's going to come on and talk about what it was like to be drafted by the White Sox. He was drafted by them in 1974, as well as what it was like kind of playing in the minor leagues and things like that. He spent a good majority of his career in the minors, but he didn't achieve MLB stardom, but he did play in the majors, and as a pitcher, he did record 2 saves. However, as Jack will talk about when we bring him on, it's going to be the work he's doing with kids and the stuff he's done outside of baseball, that I'm guessing is probably the most memorable stuff and the stuff he's most proud of. So he'll be joining us here shortly. But I did want to, again, I use Blog Talk Radio to record this podcast, and I am able to track numbers and look at stats and all that kind of thing. So I recently just received a notice that I am up to 500 total listens. So I have to do a giveaway. I mean, I cannot believe that. It is unbelievable that I have had 500 people listening to my podcast. It is pretty unbelievable. So I will be giving details of the giveaway that is happening for the 500th listen on a future episode, but I am going to get to that later. I want to get this podcast is about the guest, so I want to make sure that I give Jack the time he deserves. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, former Major League pitcher Jack Kucek. Jack, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. Looking forward to our little get-together here today. It's all about talking about the great game of baseball.
Absolutely. Let's jump right in. So you were drafted by the White Sox in 1974. What was that draft process like?
Well, actually, I was drafted first out of high school by the White Sox in the 6th round. And then, I went to college to Miami of Ohio for 3 years. Then they drafted me again as actually the first pick in the 2nd round in 1974. And it was kind of neat because my brother was at the University of Miami visiting me, and I was at a class. So when I came back, back then we didn't have the internet and all that other kind of nice stuff. So I walked into the room and I says, "Well, did you hear anything?" He kept looking at me and he kept looking at the ceiling, and I'm going, "What the heck are you doing?" I looked at the ceiling and he had a white sock hanging from the ceiling. I go, "Well, did you hear from anybody?" He goes, "Man, didn't you just come from class? Are you that dumb? Look up." I said, "Yeah, you got a white sock." "The White Sox." He goes, "Yeah." So that's how I really found out in 1974 in Miami of Ohio, and I was just ecstatic because, Chicago. My wife now, they've been married going on 38 years. She's from Chicago, so it was kind of neat. Didn't know back then because I wasn't married back then, but it was kind of neat. It was a thrill. I actually signed my contract at Cleveland Stadium with Chuck Tanner, Fred Schaefer, and Pete Melito, the scout, in Cleveland Stadium. They had me come up and throw, and then they didn't know I was going to sign, and that's another long story, but I ended up signing in my contract in Cleveland Stadium. Then I got sent to Appleton, Wisconsin. A-ball.
Yeah, and you didn't actually spend a whole lot of time in the minors. You went to Class A the Appleton Foxes, and you made your Major League debut just months after signing, August 8th, 1974. Talk about both your Class A Appleton and then that quick ascension to the majors.
Well, I will tell you, it's kind of funny because when I got signed by the White Sox and I got to Appleton, of course you fly into that airport and a guy's standing out there with the Jack Kucek sign. You're thinking you're getting in a big limo, and he gets in a clunker beat up car and takes you to the stadium. And I'll never forget, I got there, and my first game in professional baseball, Gordy Lund was the manager, and he comes up and he says, "Jack, I got orders from Chicago. You're supposed to pitch an inning today." He's never seen me pitch. Well, that game was kind of an opening into professional baseball for me because it turned out to be a beanball war. They threw a changeup and hit our pitcher in the head, our number one draft pick a couple years before, in the head with a changeup. So I go out there, and Gordy Lund looked at me and says, "I hope you know what the hell you got to do." I said, "Yeah, no problem, So I go out there. The first hitter I walk. The second hitter I walk. And Gordy's just throwing stuff in the dugout and all mad. Well, the pitcher was up third. So I rear back. I throw about a 98-mile-an-hour fastball, and I drill him right in the side. And Gordy goes crazy. He said, "I love this guy." The catcher comes out. So I got bases loaded, nobody out, my first professional game, and ended up striking out the side. Nobody scored. And it was like, Oh, I mean, I became an instant hero in A-ball.
Yeah.
So it was kind of fun. But it was neat.
Absolutely.
So then Well, I spent 6 weeks at Appleton, did really well, so they called me up to AAA. I got to AAA, spent a week, never threw one pitch, and then got called to the big leagues.
Okay.
So it was kind of neat.
What was that debut like? You debuted August 8th, 1974 against the California Angels.
Yeah, I mean that was let's put it this way, I'm not bow-legged, but my knees were shaking, man. It was a thrill. It was, like I say, it was kind of neat because, actually my first start in the big leagues was against the New York Yankees. I actually pitched the day that Nolan Ryan broke the record for which people don't realize, the fastest pitch in baseball. Everybody thinks it's Renato Chapman. That threw 105. Well, when I threw, it was against Nolan Ryan. It was in, I forget that it was Anaheim. They had radar guns and everything there. But when they timed us, they would time the pitch 10 feet from home plate. So Nolan Ryan that day threw a pitch 100.8 miles an hour against B.B. Richards. 108. 100 miles an hour, 0.8. Well, when Chapman threw the pitch 105, they measured that pitch out of his hand 50 feet from home plate. So when they did the math, calculated what that pitch Ryan threw at 100.8, if it was right out of his hand 50 feet from home plate, it would have been 108 miles an hour.
Sure.
So that's on Netflix. You can find that on Netflix under fastball. They talk about that. So I'm pretty excited because Roland Heeman, my general manager, was in the press box, and they weren't announcing my times. He has been quoted as saying I was throwing 97, 98 miles an hour that day. So if you do the math, I might have thrown harder than Chapman. I don't know. But I always tell people, getting to the big leagues is not a talent when you're a pitcher. It's a gift from God, okay? Because you don't teach somebody to throw 98 or 100 miles an hour. It's a gift. But I tell people, God gave me the gift to throw a baseball 100 miles an hour. But I also tell people what he forgot to tell me is where to throw that ball. So, throwing 100 mile an hour is great, but you better know where it's going.
Right. Exactly.
So it's kind of neat.
Exactly.
There's a lot of great memories that I can tell you. I played parts of 3 years in the big leagues, parts of 7 years professional, and when you get my age, 64, I'll be 65 this year. It's the memories that keep you going, and I'll tell you some of the greatest guys in the world. I'll tell you a funny little story. I was going to pitch in a Hall of Fame game, and it's a 2-hour bus ride from where you fly in, and I'm sitting on the bus with Santo, Melton, Dick Allen, Rich Gossett, Cherry Forster, Bucky Dent, Wilbur Wood, all these guys. So they're going, hey, rookie, if you throw a pitch and it gets away from you and you knock a hitter down, what are you going to throw? I says, well, I'm going to throw a slider away. You dumb rookie, that's what they're looking for. I said, oh, okay, this is 2 hours of getting on me, right? So I'm pitching against Cleveland. Frank Robinson's up, right? The first pitch I throw, it comes right at his head. It gets away from me, gets right at his head. He goes feet up, face down. I mean, he just plants right on the ground. I went, oh, geez. All right, great. So Ed Herman's catching. Ed Herman gives me a fastball in. I shake my head. I want to slide her away, right? He gives me another fastball in. I shake my head. Well, Santos at third base. Billy Melton's, sitting in the dugout. Next thing I hear from the dugout, you dumbass rook. And I go, oh, I look at Ed Herman. Ed Herman's now giving me the finger behind the plate. Throw a fastball. So I rear back, and I swear to God, I throw the hardest pitch I've probably ever thrown in my life. It's coming to the inside corner. Frank Robinson's looking for a slider. He steps into the plate. The ball tails in and hits him square in the ribs and sticks and just drops down. He goes down to one knee. He starts coming out to the mound. Ed Herman grabs him and said, no, Frank, go to first. I will tell you a true story. I never knew my mother had so many names. He called me every name in the book as he's going to first base, man. So I can say I hit a Hall of Famer.
Absolutely. So yeah, and you mentioned it. You spent parts of 3 big league seasons in the majors and parts of 7 minor league seasons. In 1979, you were actually traded to Philadelphia. You played sporadically for the Phillies. You spent most of your time with Oklahoma City, their AAA team. Can you talk about what it was like being traded in that experience, playing for both the Phillies and Oklahoma City?
Well, I will tell you honestly, it was probably one of the saddest days of my life because I love Chicago. I mean, it was really, my favorite team still is today. But it's still, you got a chance to play. And,
sure.
I mean, I ended up throwing a no-hitter in AAA with the Oklahoma City 89ers. And, when I was with the White Sox, I ended up throwing a no-hitter against Oklahoma City. That's one of the reasons I got traded. But it was a great time. I can't complain. I got to meet Pete Rose and Lazinski and Schmidt and Larry Boa and Tug McGraw and all those guys. So I mean, you can't complain about I remember one day I'm sitting at a local place in my hometown in Newton Falls, and my sister comes in and she goes, "You got to come home." I go, "Well, something wrong with Mom or Dad?" No, but you got to come home. I go, "Why?" She goes, "Well, Pete Rose called and he wants you to call him back." I go, "Well, here, I'll call him back when I get home. It's no big deal." So when you can meet guys like that and play with, those were class act guys, some of the greatest guys you ever met. It's all good. And then of course, then I went to the Blue Jays after that, and that was, and most teams, celebrate when you win the division or the World Series. Heck, when I was with the Blue Jays that year, we celebrated because the first year they didn't lose 100 games.
Yeah, and you were released by the Phillies in the winter of '79. You signed on in January of 1980 with Toronto. You spent most of the time I guess you split time between the Blue Jays and Syracuse, yeah. And then you decided to retire after the 1981 season. Talk about that decision about retiring, because that's never an easy decision, for a lot of people.
Well, I'll be honest with you. It's not that I retired. It was that I couldn't lift my arm above my head. I had rotator cuff. And till this day, the surgery back then, actually, Dr. Andrews did my surgery, the one that did Bo Jackson's hip. And I'll never forget sitting in his office, and he says, "Well, I hope you can sell insurance," because the arm just never came back. And the surgery they did on rotator cuff back then was they just pinned it down. Now they tie it down. So it was a career-ending injury, and to this day I still can't even throw BP. So I don't think there's 2 reasons people quit baseball. One, it's not fun anymore, and 2, they get injured. In my case, it was an injury. But, I'm still in baseball today. I run a Little League program here in my hometown of Canfield, 550 kids, ages 3 through basically 14. So, I run that league for them. And so it's I've helped put over 100 kids in college. So you're still doing things in baseball, which keeps you young. And my youngest son was an All-American, so, it's not bad. And now I got a grandson that's 10 that I think got my arm, so I'm kind of excited.
That's fantastic, yeah. So I was actually going to kind of switch gears and talk a little bit about your work outside of baseball. You kind of mentioned the camp that you do and some of your other work. The one thing I really want to talk about is your association with Feed the Children. Can you talk about what that organization is and how you're a part of it?
Yes. Yeah, I can tell you, I'm a regional director of. I got 12 states that I handle the donors. I got to tell you, you talk about, someone's life, and you look at, what you do in your life. I mean, how blessed am I to have played, Major League Baseball, and to work with a great organization like Feed the Children that feeds 262,000 people every day throughout the world. And it's just amazing. And what I do is basically, find donors that believe in our cause. And, the nice things I can tell you is 93 cents of every dollar actually goes to where it's supposed to go. And that's unheard of today with a lot of these charities, So it was a good friend of mine. It was a good friend of mine that told me this. Is he said, one day, in one moment, one person can change your life forever. Now, I never thought what that meant till he told me I was the one person that changed his life, because he moved to my hometown, Newton Falls, when he was a junior. He was a preacher's kid, and I was a 3 sports star. And basically, when we sat down the basketball court, and he says, now that you're here, I probably won't play any. Well, I go, no, but you having a hard time? He goes, yeah. I said, you getting picked on? He goes, yeah. I go, that day stops now. So he went on to start 78 churches, and I went on to play ball, and he said he wrote this book, and and that's his saying, that in one moment, one person in one day can change your life forever. And that's basically what we do every day for Feed the Children. We change 262,000 kids' life every day, because, there's nothing worse than no child should go to bed hungry, and that's basically what this organization is about. You can go on feedthechildren.org and find out everything that I'm telling you. And if you're listening to this podcast and you're in, anywhere, and you like to talk to me about it, or, I always tell people, if you got more money you know what to do with, call me. I'll tell you where to get a tax write-off, because you'll be helping kids all over the United States. 70 cents of every dollar that you give stays in the United States. The other 23 cents goes to feed people in Africa and Haiti and everywhere else. So you'll see our trucks, Vincent, Feed the Children semis going around the country. Like we were in Houston, we were in Florida. We sent truckloads of food and supplies down to Puerto Rico. You'll see these trucks going all across the country, and each truck has about $100,000 worth of food and supplies on them, and they're given to people that need it.
Again, Jack, can you tell people that website one more time, just in case they missed it the first time, so that way you guys can hopefully get some more donations?
I would love to. It's called feedthechildren.org, O-R-G, and you could request to see myself, Jack Kucek. You can put a note in there, and I'll be glad. Like I'm leaving Tuesday to go visit some donors in Chicago. I'll be in Chicago Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday visiting, which I do is I go visit some of our donors across the country just to say one thing: thank you. Thank you for doing what you do. And which is kind of neat. We did a celebrity chef dinner in New York City, which was unbelievable. What happened at that event? At that event we did there, we raised $130,000 that went to feed children across the country, and that to me is really what everything is all about, and what should always be about. So,
absolutely.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it nice. And that chef was John Doherty, Doherty, who started a charity called the Heavenly Harvest, and just amazing individual that donated his time. The restaurant donated all the food. It was just a great event, and like I said, we raised $130,000 for a great cause. These are things that we do. I'm planning on a golf tournament here locally for Feed the Children, and anything we can do to make some kids' lives happier. No child should go to bed hungry, and we have a problem in the United States, believe it or not. You see all these homeless and veterans and everybody else, and these poor kids that you just don't know about, but that's what we do. So, like I said, feel free to give anybody my number. Feel free, to get a hold of me. It's, Jack Kucek at feedthechildren.org. It's my email address. Or if you go to feedthechildren.org, ask for me. I'll gladly call you and talk to you and let you know everything about it. And at the same time, believe me, I got a lot more stories about baseball we can talk. So we can enjoy the day. So it's kind of neat when I call somebody from New York and I tell them, your fans are pretty tough. They go, what do you mean? I go, my first start at big leagues was against New York Yankees. And, oh, by the way, I did strike out Thurman Munson with the bases loaded. So
there you go. There you go. Absolutely. Well, let's switch back a little bit to baseball. Obviously, the feed the children is obviously the most important thing. But I'm always curious, how much fan mail do you get on a regular? How much fan mail do you get?
I get a couple, a day, or maybe 3-4 a week. They send baseball cards, signed autographs. Which is nice. Somebody asked me for an autograph, and I said, hey, if you got a chance, make Feed the Children your charity. And he sent a $50 check to Feed the Children. So it was kind of neat. But I get those, and I sign them and send them back. But, like I said, Vincent, I'm very blessed. I'm going on 38 years of marriage. I got 3 wonderful kids, 3 grandkids now, and I work for Feed the Children. So, and I get to talk to somebody like you and spread the word about baseball, which is the greatest sport that there is, and a great charity. So life is good. I can't really, we all got our ups and downs, but to me, life is what you make it.
Absolutely. And again, for those of you who didn't catch it the first 2 times, it is feedthechildren.org. You can email him at jackcusick at feedthechildren.org. You can go on to their website and ask to have him speak with you. He will call you. He mentioned that he's going out to Chicago. He's going to do some traveling to see some donors. Also, I will say this, for the next 7 days from today, and today is March 3rd, 2018, for the next 3 days, anybody that donates $1 to feedthechildren.org and mentions that they heard Jack on this podcast, I will match that donation.
God bless you,
because Jack is absolutely right. No child should ever, ever, ever have to go to bed and not know where their next meal's coming from. Childhood homelessness and low income and being poor. I've been there. I have a daughter. So I want to make sure that all the kids in America get all the food that they need, whether it's at home, at school, whatever. So anybody listening to this podcast, if you send me a tweet at Devlin_Clark84 or find me on Facebook for the next 7 days, if you send me proof of your donation, I will match it dollar for dollar. I will personally send the check to Jack, and he will make sure that it gets to the right place. So I'm going to do my part, and I hope all of our listeners do their part to help out.
Vincent, that is outstanding, and I hope to gosh you reach millions of people because it is a great organization, and you're just one heck of a great guy. And I'll tell you, anytime you need me on these podcasts, whatever you want, God, please call because this is fantastic, fantastic news.
I absolutely will. So, again, everybody listening live, also who will listen to this on iTunes, Twitter, and Facebook, I am on Twitter at Devlin_Clark84. That's DEVLIN_Clark84. I am on Facebook at Devlin Clark, and you can also find this podcast on Blog Talk Radio as well as iTunes. You send me proof of a donation to feedthechildren.org, and I will match it. So I will match it dollar for dollar every day for the next 7 days, and that will run until midnight on Saturday, March 10th. Jack, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you giving me a half an hour of your time today to talk baseball and a great cause. You're doing a lot of great work for everybody, and I cannot thank you enough.
Vincent, I'll tell you what, it's been my honor, and I truly mean that. And I'll tell you, keep doing what you do because you're the best, man. You make a lot of people happy, and I hate to say it, but you put your money where your mouth is, and that's rare today. So God bless you. Stay healthy, my friend.
You too. Thanks, Jack. Appreciate it.
All right. Keep in touch.
Yep. Bye-bye. All right, everybody. So that was Jack Kucek. Again, that website is www.feedthechildren.org. I will personally match donations dollar for dollar for the next 7 days as long as you send me proof that you donated. So, wow, what a great guy and an outstanding cause to help donate to. So go donate, go find some Jack Kucek cards on eBay, send it to him, have him sign them, and we will talk to you guys again down the road in podcast land. Thanks.